My guy.
Excited for this, man.
Man, I've been waiting for this for a couple of months now. We've been talking about having you on Seeding Greatness podcast. And man, I want to sort of just dive right in. Obviously, you know, we have an existing relationship. Justin and I met at Mike Zeller's mastermind retreat. And it was so many good entrepreneurs in that mastermind. It was me, you, Rebecca Zung, Tamara Andres. I remember that one event where Travis Believes was there, Mayan Gordon.
That was a good event.
Marcus Bell.
Yep.
Dude.
And Kristen Boss came out of one of those events.
Kristen Boss, Angus Nelson.
Yep.
Ooh.
Zach Hesterberg.
Zach
Shout out
was
to him
there.
in Nashville here.
Nice. I got to connect with Zach.
Yeah,
bro. So like, masterful, right? Like just beautiful group. Always was a good person. Your character really shines bright. I don't know what it is. I think some of it's your posture. It's like you sit straight up and you just look like you're trustworthy, you know?
There you go.
Some people look like they got a stick up their butt, but you just like exude this like, I don't know, this guy just makes me like him, want to trust him. And so like I had that immediately from when I met you. And then of course, as we got to build our relationship, just, man, you've become a friend, a former client, and man, someone who I look up to, someone who I think the highest of. And I'm so excited to share, dive deep into your near-death experience, your success with your TEDx talks, talk a little bit about your chiropractic practice. I know we don't get to jam on that as much. So just literally to share with the audience how you've been able to transform your life and to connect with influencers all over the world. And you could have just stayed in this safe, secure, comfy lifestyle.
Right.
So I'd like to start there. Like, can you describe to us like Justin Moseley before I met you and the person that was just running the chiropractic office? What was your day-to-day like? And man, let's kind of paint that picture before we get into some of the transformation.
Yeah, and I'm born and raised here in Nashville, which is not a common thing. We're unicorns here. Everybody else moves in. So yeah, my wife, she's a chiropractor as well. We started a chiropractic practice outside of Nashville here in 2012. So built a great practice, seeing lots of families, helping people, making an impact in the community. And fast forward to 2018, man, life was good. We'd built this great practice. Money was good. We were traveling. My wife's a big foodie, eating places, enjoying life and living our purpose, like really serving the community. And then August 2018, man, it was the day that changed my life. Went on a whitewater rafting retreat, men's retreat, went whitewater rafting. And we hit some class 5 rapids, and it was just a freak accident. The raft tipped over. I was sitting on the back of the raft and I got trapped underneath the rapid itself. And the rapid just started pushing me under. And I still remember the sound of my helmet scraping down the rocks as I was being pushed under. And the last thing I remember thinking is, I'm not coming back up. And everything went black. And then everything went bright white. It was the most peaceful, serene feeling I'd ever felt. And then I lost consciousness. And I don't know how long that lasted. It felt like an eternity. But I heard a voice that said, wake up. And thankfully I did, because I came back to consciousness and I was trapped underwater, wedged between 2 rocks. And I tried to push and I didn't budge. And I pushed and nothing was happening. And then finally my adrenaline kicked in. And we hear like crazy stories. A lady lifted a car to save a child that was trapped. Like, it was that kind of superhuman strength. And I was able to push hard enough. I broke one of the buckles on my life jacket that was underneath one of the rocks, floated to the top, gasped for breath, got swept down the river. And man, at that point I was rocked. And I was like, what just happened? And we all question our purpose in life at some point. Like, why am I here? But after that, I asked a different question. I said, why am I still here? Because things could have been different. Like, what if I didn't hear wake up? Or what if I wasn't strong enough to break free? So that's when I really started to question, like, yes, I'm living my purpose, but I'm playing way too small. I know that God's called me to make a bigger impact. And by processing that, I realized, man, I had gotten comfortable, like you said, man, because life was good. And I just was stuck in this comfort zone of, man, I could just go through my day to day and enjoy life and help people, and it would be a purpose-filled life, but it was still way too small. And I realized that if I truly wanted to step into the calling that was on my life, I needed to exchange my comfort for my calling. And that's when I was like, man, I don't know what it looks like, but God's called me to go bigger. So at that point, that's when I started just putting out content. I looked at my life. I was like, man, I love mindset, leadership, personal development. I'd studied it for years. I'm just going to put out what helped me. I'm going to put it out for other people. I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to listen. I don't know if you ever felt like that. I'm going to put myself out there.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to listen or not. And the first of 2020, I started a Facebook group, January 2020, and 1,000 people joined in the first month.
Oh,
so I was like, okay, well, people are here, they're listening, and they kept wanting more. I kept interviewing different experts every week in the group. And that led to me running retreats and masterminds and doing coaching and different things. Cause I was like, wait, they're asking for more. Other people are monetizing this. How does this work? So I had to figure out that side of things. But yeah, it led to a lot of opportunities, led to a lot of speaking. It led to my first TED Talk in 2022, which we worked together on. You helped me craft my message of sharing the message of my near-death accident and the lessons that I learned there. And then fast forward to now, I mean, that was 2022. A couple years later, I'm speaking different places, and people keep reaching out to me and saying, man, I love what you're doing. I wish I could do that, but I'm terrified of speaking. And he's like, it just comes so natural to you. And I kept telling everybody, it's not natural to me. For most of my life, I had a tremendous fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the latest TED Talk that I did in last year. And it was how I overcame my fear of public speaking, because I truly believe everybody's got a message to share.
Right.
And I want to encourage and inspire people to share their message with the world.
So good. So good. Let's backtrack a little bit, right? So to go from I'm running my chiropractic practice to like, I get it. The near-death experience was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
But was it already in your heart before you had that near-death experience to sort of like, did you already kind of have some ideas like, man, I kind of want to share my story more, or I want to get content out there?
Right. Yeah. I think it goes back to even growing. So I read my first Tony Robbins book when I was 16. I was in the bookstore in the self-help section, and I was there because I struggled with low self-esteem, low self-worth. And I was like, man, I want self-help. Like, what's here? And I saw Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, this big, thick 600-page book. And I was like, something just stood out about that book. And when I read that, I mean, that's what shifted for me. It was like, if you change your mind, you can change your life. And life can look completely differently. So that kind of lit me up on the path of personal development. And then I started studying Tony's work and just seeing him on the stage and how he could influence people and just make this big impact. I was like, man, I want to do that. But at that point, I was still terrified. So I was like, oh, I feel this calling to do it. But that's for people like Darryll, who just get on the stage and have this big personality. That's not for me. And I believe that
so you
story.
didn't meet Darryll, the old Darryll.
That's true.
That
Now
started
that I know the
out,
old story.
the shaking, that literally when we used to say like icebreakers, like you go around the room and say, you know, hi, my name is so-and-so, and this is my favorite animal. Like I used to leave the room and fake like I had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So like I definitely, when we get like further back to that public speaking thing, we can jam on that, because we both share that in common of like, we weren't just terrified, we also weren't good.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like I even like you had some reps under your belt when we started working together, but I'm like listening to your opening, and I was like having this flashback of like, oh snap, dude, you have come a long freaking way. In what, 3 years?
Right. Yep. And
like the first time you tried to share that story, I remember like all those little, there's so many little things that weren't even in there that are so natural now, like that not here, still here.
Right.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Because we had to like you were trying to figure out how to say that and describe it.
Yeah.
Because you didn't really know. And I was like, no, you got to describe the scene when you were stuck. And then what happened? You were like, I just got up, like, no, I heard a voice. Like, yeah, say that.
Right.
And then
yeah, because we take our own story for granted. And that's the thing, is like everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes somebody else to pull it out and help you understand how to communicate your story. Because the story's there. We've all been through stuff, and it doesn't need to be a near-death accident.
Right.
It doesn't have to be something crazy. Everybody's got a story. There's lessons you've learned that you can take. And I shared that quote from Rory in my TED Talk. He says, you are perfectly positioned to serve the person you once were. So going back at your own life, like what have you been through and what lessons have you learned, and you can share that with someone else. But the problem is most people don't know how to communicate the story, so it doesn't make sense to tell other people. So that's where people like you can come in and be like, oh, here's the point you're trying to get across. Here's how to tell the story that can make an impact.
Right. So man, so many people have ideas, books they know they want to write, callings that they know they're supposed to follow, businesses that they know they're supposed to start, but they're just not doing it. Sort of like you pre-wake up call. So like, what was your mental dialogue like prior to this moment of surrender? Like, what did you tell yourself when all these thoughts came out? Like, I shouldn't. Like, what was your dialogue to yourself to keep you from doing it?
Yeah, and I think it came down to the wake-up call, because people ask me now on the other side of it, like, well, if you wouldn't have gone through that, would you be doing what you are doing today? And I don't know, probably not, because I was doing a good thing. That was my purpose for what I saw in that season. But it took that wake-up call for me to say, you know what, something's bigger. So my encouragement to other people, you don't need a near-death accident. You don't need a rock-bottom moment. Usually that's the other thing. Either it's a rock-bottom moment or a loss of a loved one. That's when we start to ponder things. But if you actually take a step back right now and look at your life, where have you gotten comfortable? Where are you playing small? And another big lesson that I took from my near-death accident is I asked myself, man, if it would have all ended in that moment, is this the legacy I want to leave? And the answer was no. So, and it still drives me to this day. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize I could have done more. I could have made a bigger impact. I could have helped more people. So that still drives me to this day, is every day I want to help people. I want to make an impact. I want to make a difference. So when I get to the end of my life, I'll be like, yep, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, served the Lord, and I made a big impact for his honor, for his glory.
So good. So now walk me through the early building seasons of the kind of Mindset Doctor brand and like content and serving chiropractors in that community. You said you grew 1,000 people in a month.
Yeah.
And usually people's transitions aren't that successful, right? So you're running a successful practice. You're like, near-death experience. I'm feeling called. I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to start sharing the things that were helpful to me that I've been studying for years. Like, dude, how did you have so much traction so fast, so soon?
Right. And I think a couple things. One is, to your point earlier, I just took action. I didn't question. A lot of people have the ideas, but they're like, the thing, it has to be perfect. I have to know what I'm going to say. I have to have this planned out, and what's the agenda, and how am I going to monetize this? For me, I just took action. I just started putting out content, started connecting with other entrepreneurs, interviewing people, not knowing where it was going to lead. I just took action. And I think one of the biggest reasons why it actually took traction is because there was no agenda. I wasn't doing it to make money. I wasn't doing it to start a business. I was literally doing it just to serve. And that's how I've started all my businesses. Even our clinic was started on two things. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve. And in Zig Ziglar, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want, which is all about service again. So that's how I look at everything. And my content was just to serve people. It's just to help people. Hopefully I'll make an impact. And because it did, people wanted more, and it led to other opportunities. And the whole Mindset Doctor came around. I wasn't trying to force any of this. So I actually, speaking of Mike Zeller, right before I met you, I spoke at one of his mastermind events. And as I was speaking, some dude goes, man, you're the Mindset Doctor. And I was like, hey, I like that. I'm going to roll with that. Because I was talking mindset at this retreat. You're the Mindset Doctor. Hey, I like it. I'm going to roll with it.
Right. I was so confused the first time I heard it, because I went to your site and I'm like, where's his doctorate in? Did he just call himself a doctor?
Yeah, he's actually.
And then it was like, oh, he's got a chiropractic too. And it's like, well, oh, and I was like, oh, it's like a play on words.
That's
it's
right,
like he's a chiropractic doctor and he's a mindset doctor. Yep. So yeah,
I've got a friend, his dad's business is like the Drain Doctor or something, which is no doctor at all. It's just that it was a cool title, but I actually do have the doctorate and love the mindset side.
Nice. You didn't just call yourself doctor. Although that would be a cool way to be a doctor without actually earning the credentials, is just make it your brand name.
You say it enough, people
I'm gonna be
believe
Dr. D, bro. Dr. D.
Dr.
Nice. D. Crush it. So, man, part of it is like, I just know that sometimes when we're great at something, what is foundational for us is revelational for other people.
Right.
So things that come so natural to us are supernatural to other people. They just can't fathom it. So like, I'm kind of camping a little bit in this, like starting your brand, you know, that early season, because so many people are just looking to gain traction, and you had so much success just from serving. I hear that. Yeah. But like, man, like let's unpack that a bit, because part of what I'm observing is there's so much about your mindset that was already prepped before you launched your business, that you didn't have all of that, you know, analysis paralysis, death by, you know, analysis type of thing. Yep. So like, what are some things that you were doing and do to this day to cultivate an abundant mindset that allows you to take consistent action?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because a lot of people, anyone, you see the success that they're having today, it's from the work they did in the past. So for me, it was looking about the 16-year-old kid who got the Tony Robbins book, who struggled with self-esteem and self-worth and all those things. I had to do work on myself first. And then that went into the clinic. So I went from being terrified to speak to shifting it and started speaking all the time. And speaking was what actually grew our clinic. I was going out doing lunch and learns, doing dinner with the doc, like getting out and speaking. Oh, really? And just taking action. Yeah, that's what actually built our clinic. And then from there, leveraging that into content and then the speaking that I'm doing now. But, and here's a point for everyone to take away. It doesn't go away. We still have the limiting beliefs, those thoughts that come in. We just know how to realize that's the voice in my head. And I tell people all the time, you have to speak louder than the voices in your head. It's always going to be there. You're always going to say, I'm not good enough. There's other people that can do this better. Why would they want me? They could have Darryll, like whatever. There's always going to be those voices, but it's remembering what God has called you to do. And I think it starts with knowing what you want and having a clear vision. I mean, the Bible talks about vision all the time. Without vision, people perish. And you got to have the vision. And that's the hardest thing for people. You ask them what they want, they're not really clear. They can tell you all the things I don't want. I don't want to work these hours. I don't want to do this. I don't want that. They're not really clear on what they want. And when you get clear on what you want, the second part of that is then you got to figure out who you need to become in order to achieve that. And I think that's, for me, what I've done is having the vision, but then also who I need to become. Realizing the person that I am today is not the person that's already achieved my goals and dreams, because that's going to be a new version of me. So over the years, I've constantly upgraded the version of me. So a lot of people are still walking around. We have a software in our brain. Our operating system is similar to operating system on a phone. So they're walking around like they have an iPhone 4 when they're on iPhone like 20 or something. So it's like you need to upgrade your software, your operating system of your mind, which allows you to do bigger and better things. So if you don't upgrade that, you're always going to be stuck at the level you are now. And ways to upgrade that is get around people that are doing bigger things. Easiest way to start is books, podcasts, like learning from other people that opens your mind to what's possible. Early transition for me, reading that Tony Robbins book opened my mind to something bigger, allowed me an upgrade there, and then an upgrade, going to masterminds, getting around people, doing the things you need to do to constantly upgrade who you are. I think too many people aren't aware that they're just stuck. They're stuck in the same pattern. They're doing the same thing over and over every single day, going through the same routine and not consistently growing themselves. And I think for me, the success was a byproduct of constantly growing myself.
So good, bro. So good. I love that, man. You threw some nuggets in there. And I think that's important because, yes, books, podcasts, getting around people. I think people underestimate that. Like it's funny. It was really, I feel like 7-10 years ago, that's all I heard was kind of like, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And then I think we got so tired of hearing it that it stopped being said as much, and we started saying vulnerability and empathy and belonging. And then now it's like, yo, like people are kind of forgetting the power of who you're around. And it's such a big, like for me, like I read a ton of books on abundance mindset. I read Think and Grow Rich. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read, all the common stuff on there. I even tried to get through Tony Robbins' Total Money Makeover.
Oh yeah,
is that the name of his?
His is just Money. His is just called Money. Yeah,
it's Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. Right? So I did read Dave Ramsey, but I also did Tony Robbins one, right? And I think he writes thick books. Yeah, that boy was thick. I was like, my God, bro. And my poverty mindset did not get broken until I got around other entrepreneurs and saw how much my poverty mindset was affecting my beingness.
Right.
It's like nothing, the book, like learning about it, like even like you're a badass at making money, like it didn't break it for me.
Right. Yeah.
And I tell you what did, bro. I was at lunch with a entrepreneur, and then her husband was just a doctor, and they were eating at this fancy restaurant, and I was eating at this fancy restaurant, and we get done with our food, and there's leftovers, and I'm like, ask for my to-go box, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah. Now this is a very nice restaurant, like probably minimum like $100 plate type of thing. Yep. And they were getting ready to leave all of this leftover food on the table. And where I come from, that is a cardinal sin. You don't just, I come from where we went to the buffet to try to grab something and sneak a couple extra, you know what I'm saying? And we dang sure was not about to leave half of the $100 filet mignon on the table.
Yep.
And I started to get up, and I saw that they was leaving their whole dessert and half their steak, and I was like, "Yo, oh, what?" And they was like, "Oh no, I don't want to eat. I'm good. I'm full." Like they were. It was so uncomfortable for me to watch somebody who lived in an abundance mindset.
Yep.
Not worry about trying to save scraps.
Right.
And man, that was like a moment where I was like, "Oh my God." Yep. Where else am I acting like a poor person?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like that is so good, bro. And I think that's also something you're great at, is getting around high level people. What is some of your advice, or what's some of your strategy for how do you develop a high value network?
Yeah. And going back to that story you told, because it reminded me, Sean Dill, Sean,
yeah,
he does that as well. As far as abundance mindset, whenever he goes out to eat, he always leaves a little bit on his plate. And that's the reminder to him that everything's abundant. So there's always going to be enough. So, but
Sean is deep, bro.
Yeah. So yes, shout out to Sean. But I think I've tried to be strategic in who I'm around, because like you said, it is important. I remember, so I got into Tony Robbins, who was mentored by Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn was the one that always said that. Now, a lot of people have said the 5 people you surround yourself with, but he's always like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yep. So there's definitely truth to that. And I mean, some people take it to the extreme, like cut off people. Like, I don't do that. So I'm just more aware of, okay, if I'm around these people, they think like this, I'm not going to let them influence me. And I'm going to balance myself out by hanging around more of the people that are going to push me to be greater. But one of the things that's helped me the most is, how do I serve first? How do I give to someone else first? And a big way to do that was having a platform like podcasts. You can have people on your podcast and start a conversation. That can open you up to people that you can't just call them on the phone. You can't just like, hey, let's just jump on a call, because they're like, I'm busy. What do you want? Because everybody's got an agenda. But if you just offer them a platform like, hey, I just want to have a conversation, let you open to my audience. You can pitch the audience if you want to, whatever. Right. This is just a chance for us to connect. Yeah. And then by the time you get done with that type of conversation, you have, like I interviewed Dan Martell. People can't just contact him. Like, it's funny. I've had so many people ask me after I interviewed him, yeah, I've talked to him on Instagram. I was like, you did not talk to Dan Martell on Instagram. It's funny. He even talks about it. He was like, because he's got his assistants are dialed in. There's a certain thing when somebody gets in his DMs, you say this. And it's funny. I ask him, and everybody says, yeah, this is what he said. And it's the exact same thing. But they think they're talking to Dan. But my point to that is I interviewed him, but then after the conversation, he was real nice. We could sit there. I had the chance. I could have asked him anything. Right. So that was a way to, and I was interviewed Coach Burt last week, Coach Michael Burt here in Nashville. And I was asking him this kind of question of, how do you connect with all the people? This Tim stories, the this, the that. And for him, it all went back to, he spoke at Grant Cardone's 10X, which is a huge thing that he actually had to pay $100,000. I think he had to buy tickets to get on that stage, and then he sold the tickets. to actually make the money back. So he has got his own story around that. But he's like, an opportunity like that allowed me to connect with Tim's story, allow me to meet this person and meet this person. So I go back to even, let's go 2020, I think is when I did my first summit. I interviewed you on the summit. I interviewed other cool people. You connected me to David Meltzer, had him on that summit. Meltzer, I've connected to multiple people through him. I eventually met Sean through David. David was speaking at an event and Sean was there. And then I met multiple people through Sean. So it's one of those things that the network continues to grow, but if you have to actively pursue it, you have to look at who do I want to be around, not to get something from them. It's like even hanging out with you. Like we've grown together over the years. I've never tried to get anything from you. You've never tried to get anything from me either. It's always just like that true heart. Like, how can I help you? How can I help you? And we've worked together in the past, and that just naturally happened.
Let me say something about that, because I hear that language tossed around. I'm not trying to get something from somebody. And I think it's sticky for people because I see people go way too far to the left.
True.
To where now I don't want to ask for nothing. It's not. They don't never ask for anything.
Yeah.
And,
that's right.
And what he's describing, in my opinion, is more of a spirit, a way of being. It's like more of like you're just a taker. And you're not, there's no reciprocity to your beingness, right? Like because we make offers all the time. Like obviously you were a client, I sold you, you paid me for that. So I definitely got. Right. But I'm not a taker.
Yes, yeah. You don't have the agenda coming forward. Like, okay, and that goes back to the spirit of it is a lot of people are like, okay, if I connect to this person because I can get this. Yep. I don't have that type of mindset. I'm looking at the people I can connect, because you never know. You connect with this one person who connects you with this other person to this other person. I know it's always going to come back. Yeah. So there is that. It's kind of just the open hands philosophy. I know it's reaping and sowing. I know I'm going to sow the seeds. I'm going to reap the harvest. Yeah. But I'm not. It's not this transactional. What can I get from this relationship with Darryll? Yeah. It could be. I didn't know you were going to introduce me to David Meltzer. That just happened, and then the other relationships. So it's like it's always a mindset of something good is going to come from it. Yes. And sometimes it is an ask. Sometimes it's, hey, I can serve you in this way. There's an offer here. And
David Meltzer was an ask. It was like, I'm looking for people for the summit. I need some great speakers. And then it was like, I'm sure if I ask David, he'll do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like that type of thing. So,
and I think part of it is you gain the trust to make the ask. Yeah. Too many people make the ask early and there's no trust
the first thing, the card with the with the ask simultaneously, like don't even ask your name. Just
and here's a big one I'm sure you get is, hey, how do you get on TEDx? Can you connect me? Can you get me on your stage? God. Like that's the thing. It's like, hey,
don't even start. Don't even start. Don't go there.
TEDx. Don't go there. Hey, you run a TEDx. Can I get on the stage?
TEDx. Oh, good. Like, you do TEDx. You help people get TEDx talks, right? And what they're actually trying to ask me, like they're like, so can you just get me on the stage? Can you make an introduction? Yep. And it's like, oh, hi.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That
nice
happened
to meet you.
So right after my first TEDx, the first event I spoke to after that event, I talked about, hey, I just had this experience. Yeah. Somebody I didn't know at all came up to me and was like, hey, I want to do a talk. Can you connect me to whoever organized? I'm like, I don't even know you.
Don't even know you. Don't even know if your idea is good. Yep. Like none of that. It's at least they were bold enough to ask, man, I guess. But anyways, back on the note of like surrounding yourself with great people, who would you say is maybe the top one or two people that have influenced you, and how so and why?
So I would go back all the way to my dad. So dad, he's a video producer here in Nashville, and I remember going to work with him over the summer.
I don't think just watching about your dad that much.
Yeah, so I would go every summer, man. I would go to work with him, kind of watch behind the scenes, and that's when I was like, man, this is so cool. He gets to run his own business. So I was like, man, I'm going to run my own business one day. So I think he really inspired the entrepreneurial spirit in me. And I thought I was going to be a video producer. Like I went to undergrad to do that, and then shifted.
Did you really?
Yeah. I went to MTSU, mass communications program
there.
Really?
Yeah. You're going to be a videographer?
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, I got there, I already had more experience than the people that were already there. Yeah, because I was already working with my dad. I was already doing video shoots and different stuff. I was, man, even in high school, I was filming weddings and doing highlight films for football teams and stuff. Bro. And so I had more experience coming out of high school than people that were already in college learning this stuff. So, I ended up shifting gears in college and went from mass communications major to pre-med major to get into chiropractic school. And
Gotcha.
then, just shifted gears.
So your father and his entrepreneur spirit, is it anything specific that you feel like inspires or like shapes the work that you do today?
Yeah, I think the grit too, and just seeing what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because it's not easy.
Right.
And to see what he did to grow a business. And he started that business like right before I was born too. So it was like, I grew up with the business. So seeing that behind the scenes and just that, what I learned later from Tony Robbins is what I saw then. It's not about the resources, it's about the resourcefulness.
Say it again.
Yeah, seeing that resourcefulness. And that's something that I use to this day. My wife's great at that too. It's just, she's resourceful. And I think that's one of the things that people miss out. They think, I can't do it because of this, because of the money, because of the relationships. I don't have these things, versus how can I be resourceful?
Yes.
And you can find the money, you can find the relationships if you're resourceful enough.
Man, I got to shout out the dude who connected us, Mike Zeller, because I tell this story all the time. It was so pivotal in terms of my ability to be resourceful. And I got on a call with Mike before joining that mastermind, and he quoted me the price. And at that time, I hadn't paid that type of money. You know, it was like 10, 12K or something like that at the time. And when he said it, my mouth almost hit the floor. I thought it was a pyramid scheme. I was like, somebody is paying $10,000 to $12,000 a year to be coached by you?
Right.
And he's like, oh, no, that's just this mastermind. That's not even this whatever. That's 40K or something. I'm like, dude, this dude is robbing people.
Yeah.
He's trying to teach me how to be a professional robber. And Mike said this to me that I'll never forget. He said, okay. He said, so you don't have, I think the deposit was like $5,000. So you don't have $5,000 in your bank account right now. But can we agree that there's $5,000 in the world to go get? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm putting money around. He's like, cool. So why don't we ask the question, how do we get more of what's already around us? And I was like, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It was a big lesson on resourcefulness. I hit a financial investment I didn't have the resources to make. And I immediately was like, dang, I wanted to do it, but I can't. And then I was non-resourceful and ready to just be in my feelings that I couldn't afford something.
Right.
Versus becoming resourceful, which I did, by the way, is I figured it out within a week. Right. I figured out how to find $5,000 within a week, when up until that month, I don't even think I was doing 5K months.
Right. Yeah. And when you go through something like that, it shows you what's possible for you.
Yes.
And you're like, well, if I can do that, what if I could do this?
Yes.
And what if I can do that? And then when you do that, then you can show other people how to do it as well. And you can help them believe in themselves and become more resourceful. And going back to what we started with is like the success, people see that part, but they don't see the little things, that conversation there. And that's where sometimes being around the right people can actually open your mind to what's possible.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I have a friend here in Nashville. I actually had coffee with him this morning, and he was shifting gears. He built a multi-million-dollar company, and he went into business coaching. And we met, I think, 2020 maybe. And at that time, he just started his business coaching. He was charging $1,500 a month, and he was meeting people in person a couple times a month. Okay. In person, $1,500 a month. Fast forward, I helped him shift his mindset, charging more. He started groups. He started groups that he was charging like $3,500 each, and getting him into a group. And now all the way to, fast forward, from a guy charging $1,500 a month for coaching, now has a $30,000 mastermind, and he charges minimum of $100K for a year for coaching.
Nice.
So but had we not, I mean, he might have figured it out himself, but it was me. It took me showing like, man, there's so much more you can do here, and that opened his mind to, man, maybe I could charge more. Right. Because, you never know. He might have, do what most people do. I'll increase my prices a little bit. I'll charge $2,000. Yeah. And then maybe by now he'd be up to $3,000. Yeah. But I helped him really see, there's so much potential here. Right. And shout out to him though, it took him taking action on it. It's
course.
one thing to have the idea like, oh, that's great, but I can't do that. Like he actually acted on it and went from $1,500 a month to $100,000 a year to work with them. So it's a big difference.
Oh, super big difference.
Yeah. And that's the power of, you never know that one conversation. And it reminds me of the story, one of the stage stories of the $500 dinner. And there was a guy, successful businessman, was being interviewed by a reporter. And he said, what would happen if you lost everything? And he's like, I'd wake up, I'd go get a job, and I'd save up $500, and I'd go out to eat at a restaurant that costs $500. I'd go back to work. I'd save up $500. I'd go out to eat at a restaurant that costs $500. And then I'd wake up, and then the reporter stopped him like, why do you keep wasting $500? And he said, see, that's the difference in mindset. He said, you see that as a waste. I look at it, if I surround myself with the people that pay $500 for dinner, I'm eventually going to find the right person that's going to help me build all my wealth back. And that's the power of getting in the right rooms. So it's a $500 dinner, $2,500 mastermind, one weekend to $10,000 masterminds to 30 to whatever. People are in the room can give you an idea. And it doesn't have to be I do business with them. It's maybe that one idea that I got from them allowed me to go bigger.
So good. So good. Man, let's get into the public speaking a bit. Okay. So obviously your most recent TED Talk, how you overcame your fear of public speaking, it's done over 370,000 views. Yeah. Hopefully by the time this comes out, it'll be at the 400K mark. If not, audience members, go help him hit 100K or $500,000, wherever he's at this point. Right. And now starting to sort of be like a model for people who are afraid to share their story, afraid to speak. You're now an example of what's possible when you face that fear and helping others to do the same. So I love to dig into some of those key moments for you that has helped you to go from like being afraid to talk in front of people to confidently speaking in front of audiences around the world.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, speaking is what helped build our practice. Yeah. So I looked at it as like, man, I could hide behind this fear or I could actually make a bigger impact. So, and it's one of the principles I shared in my TED Talk is it's not about me. And a lot of times the fear comes, we make it about us. And we start thinking about what if they're going to judge me? What if I say the wrong things? What if I mess up? All those things in our head are about us versus what's in it for them. Especially having a health business, I want to see a community that's healthy. Man, I want to get out and teach these principles that can allow people to be healthier. So when I focused on them, that took the pressure off of me and allowed me to be confident of, you know what? I can go out there, and if I share one thing that helps somebody, it's going to make an impact. And I actually did share this story in my TED Talk. With one of my very first talks, there was 200 people in an auditorium. Like I would have been freaked out, but I did those principles. I said, man, if one person in this audience takes what I have to say and applies it to their life, it could be a game changer for them. So I took that fear off of me and I was like, man, I'm excited.
Did you have a moment of meditation? Was it just like a 2-second, like mindful reminder to yourself? Like,
yeah. And it was and it goes back to the vision that I talked about earlier. I remember even before this, before opening our practice, I would go for walks and I would visualize myself being on stages, speaking to people, even like being a confident speaker. And that's why I looked at people like Tony Robbins. I mean, I learned the principle of modeling from Tony Robbins. It's like, how does he use his body when he communicates? You talked about posture earlier. How does he use his body? How does Jack Canfield tell stories? Like I started weaving these other people into my mind of like, what are the characteristics I like? Now can I see myself as that?
That's so good.
So yeah, I started visualizing myself as a speaker. So yeah, people do ask me a lot about when did you become a speaker? And I became a speaker in my mind first, long before I ever stepped on a stage. So it started there, started just visualizing and feeling it. And then because those nerves still come up to this day. So there's still a process I go of focusing, hey, it's not about me, it's on them. What's the impact that I'm going to make with this talk, with this speech, whatever it is. So that's where I got into that state of, man, I'm going to go out here and make an impact.
Yeah.
And also shared in my TED Talk too, of where I looked at fear. And the symptoms of fear is where your heart races, your muscles tense up, your palms can sweat, like all these things can happen when you're afraid. But if you look at excitement, you have those exact same things. Your heart races, your muscles tense up. So it's your mind gets to decide, am I afraid or am I excited in this moment? So that's where I shifted to, is like, you know what? I'm excited. I'm feeling these feelings. And before, what I would do, I'd feel it and be like, see, you're not supposed to be up there. You're not supposed to talk. Like, you're going to mess up. Remember you did it in the past? It didn't work. Like, that's what's going to happen again. So I would feel that over and over, and it would condition me like, this is not for you. You should not be doing this, is what the story I told. And then finally I was like, you know what? That's the wrong anchor to that belief. When I feel those feelings, I can actually say, you know what? You're excited. That's why you're feeling it. You look at it at sports, like people are amped up. Somebody in the Super Bowl is going to be feeling jittery and amped up, and their heart's going to be racing. And but it's because they're excited, not because they're scared. So that's what was happening to me, is I shifted that to, then I'm not afraid, I'm excited. So then I would actually did get excited, and I would go out there and I would share my message. So back to opened our practice in 2012, doing that talk at a church, 200 people there, delivered my talk. And then afterward, a guy came up, he said, Dr. Justin, I want to thank you for sharing that story. He's like, you shared exactly what I needed to get my health back. And he had just came off of quadruple bypass surgery.
Wow.
And he said he was in the hospital bed, and they came and they laid his little grandson on his lap. And he told his family, he's like, I'm going to be around to watch my grandson grow up. And then he's like, the message you just shared, that's exactly what I needed. And he applied the principles, and he went on, 65 years old, ran his first Ironman. And go from quadruple bypass to Ironman, and now he's run multiple Ironman races. But the point for me was, if I never would have overcame that fear, I never would have had the opportunity to impact that man's life. So that still drives me too. Is like, who is that person in there that I could speak life into? Because you never know. And I shared this quote in my TED Talk too, one of my favorites. You never know how far-reaching something you may think, say, or do today can affect the lives of millions tomorrow.
So true. Man, it's so true. Woo, that was good. I want to drill a little bit, and then we'll start to land the plane here. But you said some stuff that I think is so important. I want to like expand on it a bit. Like, number one, you talked about it not being about you. That's a big principle for people to work through: anxiety, fear, anxiousness. Even in my opinion, it is a big way of how you create resonance in your talk, how you have a talk that resonates so much with other people that they stop, pause, pay attention, write down, amen, hallelujah, let me get some more of that, right? It's because it has a resonance in there that comes from a place of true service. Right. Like you can, how you can feel, like kind of how we were talking about relationally earlier, when people are takers in a relationship.
Yeah.
You can feel the same thing as an audience member when speakers are takers.
For sure. Yeah. And that I'm glad you brought that up, and that's something coming from me too, back then, being afraid to wanting to speak. It was a mindset I think a lot of people still have, is you need to be on stage to show, look how good I am and how great of a speaker and all that. And I think back to this full conversation of kind of my heart is, I don't need to impress anybody. And you don't need to impress me. Like, too much in this world, speakers, coaches, like everybody's just trying to look how good I am. And I don't like that. And I don't like being around people that are like that. I like people that just like, man, you don't need to impress me. I don't need to be impressed by you. I just want to, have real conversations, and how can we help each other grow and get better? So I think that's the same kind of posture I take up to the stage. Is I'm not here to speak at you. I'm here to speak for you. And what can I give that's actually tangible? Which even recently I've been invited to speak at some events, and I was like, man, I'd rather have a conversation, and like even inviting the host, like, because what does your audience want? How do we give them a conversation they want versus here's my templated keynote that somebody wants? So I really look at it now as it's an opportunity to make impact, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So good. So focus on other people, like legit, like have a regimen. Two things. Number one, have a regimen where you're focused on the audience, right? Like I like to intentionally, before my presentations, visualize myself giving this message. visualizing a day in the life of the audience members. Like, obviously I'm making up these scenarios, but I know enough about the audience that I'm sort of visualizing an average day. I'm thinking about what they're coming into the room carrying. I'm imagining them receiving my information. I'm thinking about them going and applying that to their families and their businesses and wherever else they work. And I'm looking at the ripple effect of my message. And because I am connected to that, that for me is sort of like my North Star in this speech, to stay connected to that always before I get off onto many tangents or caught up in my PowerPoint slide or stuck on even one person, that I'm like making sure that I'm serving that need that I felt into the audience. So I think a practice like that for people is important.
Well, let's stay there, because visualization is, I mean, we could go a whole hour on visualization. That's a big principle that I live by and that I teach, because the mind can't tell the difference between something real and something vividly imagined. So I do the same thing. And for weeks, months before my first TED Talk, I was already seeing myself on that stage.
Right.
Feeling what it felt like to be standing in that red circle, feeling the heat from the lights, hearing the buzz of the microphone, looking out, seeing people nod as I'm talking. So fast forward after the talk, then people were like, man, were you nervous? And I was like, actually, I could legitimately say no, because I had replayed it in my mind so many times, it felt like I'd already been there.
Right.
So it wasn't like some new experience.
Right.
So I just played it over and over in my mind, and it actually happened legit. Like I said, I would look out and there was somebody nodding, just like in my visualization.
Right.
So visualization is powerful, because it's like riding a bike. Once you learn to ride a bike, you don't forget how to do it. It's like you've learned it. The same thing can happen with any skill. If you visualize it enough, your mind thinks you've actually learned it. That's one of the things that helped me become a speaker, was visualizing myself being a speaker. This is one thing, and Rory talks about this, is what makes a great speaker, one of his mentors told him, is 1,000 speeches. Which there's power to that. You get out there and you do 1,000 speeches. So I was like, okay, well, how can I use that principle in how many speeches can I do in my mind? So I'm going to go do, hey, I could do 500 speeches and I could do 10,000 in my mind over and over. And I could kind of fast track that point of those speeches without having to go physically and set up 1,000 talks. Man, what if I could do 1,000 in my mind within a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then visualize, and then all of a sudden my mind started believing that I was a speaker.
No, that's next level, bro. I'm observing. You got a lot of chops on this mindset stuff,
dude,
bro.
Man, I'd love it. I mean, it could do with any skill. You want to become a better salesperson. You want to become a better spouse, father. Like, visualize it, and man, the more you visualize it, the more you will become it. Yeah. And that's like one of the principles I live by, is because everybody knows morning routines. And some people have like 2-hour morning routine. I got to do all these things. And a morning routine is important. What you do with the day, the morning routine can set up your day, but it's your evening routine that sets up your life. Oh. And if you set the right visualization before you fall asleep, your subconscious mind starts to process it while you're sleeping. And man, you can wake up, you can feel more confident, you can learn new skills, you can memorize scripts. There's all things you can do by implanting your subconscious mind before you fall asleep.
So how do you do that?
So perfect example. So let's go back to our story, even around TEDx. So I went from TEDx was a bucket list thing for me. Yeah. I saw Simon Sinek's Start With Why back in 2010 or 11. Like, man, that's amazing. And share this one little principle and it goes and changes the world. And I was like, but that's not for me. That's for people that can speak. So fast forward, finally I took it from, this is a bucket list thing, to I'm going to be a TEDx speaker. Okay. So I went and I started doing a visualization. The same one that I did through my TED Talk, being on that red circle, seeing the audience. And then boom, I woke up and I had a thought flash that, okay, you want to make this a reality, you need to reach out to Darryll. He's done this before. So that's when I reached out to you. I said, what's the process? I was like, here's my idea. What's the process? And you were like, you got to shoot an application video. You told me like the actual steps. So when we had that conversation, I was doing my visualization. The day I did the application video was a Friday. And that afternoon, I was invited in Nashville to go out to dinner with a friend. About an hour into the dinner, he was like, hey, I met a cool guy earlier this week. He came into town. He's the organizer for TEDx. I had never told my friend. I was even on my radar. I was like, really? I just shot my application video. I'm about to start applying to TEDx. Darryll told me to. We're going to start. And you even told me, like, it'll take you about a year or 18 months if you get accepted, because you'll get denied places. There's stuff that happens. And then the day I shot the video, he invites me. I connected with that organizer the next week, and he accepted me right there on the spot. So it all happened because there's a reticular activating system in your brain is what the filters out. It filters out things. Yeah. Right now, there's so much going on around us. We can't focus on everything. And the easy principle is like when you go to buy a new car, you start to look at the car, and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere when you're driving. Yeah. They were always around you. You just weren't keyed in to actually see them. Yeah. Well, when you start to visualize, you start to see opportunities. I saw that opportunity, like I need to reach out to you and figure out the process. And then I need to take action on the process, but then I need to continue to visualize it. And then God just aligns these opportunities, or all of a sudden, if I wouldn't have done that visualization, it wouldn't have been on my radar to even reach out to you about TEDx. I still would have went to dinner with my friend. He would have told me about that guy, and I've been like, yeah, that's cool. Right. But because I started to organize everything into a vision, a visualization, and actually took action on it, it all started to align at the right time.
That's so good. How important do you feel like that following of the action? Because that's a big piece. Like I had this download, I should reach out to Darryll, and I'm like, I just did it. I see a lot of people, they have it, and they're like, oh, cool, insight. Yeah. And they don't actually do it. Like me, I was just having this conversation with David Meltzer, because, he's big on sleep and subconscious and all the relativity stuff. and I'm laughing because I can't even repeat it all. David's such a beast. Yeah. And we were literally, like, I think yesterday we were just having this conversation because he's like, really trying to help me to get this importance of sleep and what we access from the divine when we sleep, etc. And we were talking about this, like specifically David's like, I don't understand how people do hour-long meditations. He said, I always ask them, what do you do with all that information you receive? Right. He said, I don't want to meditate for more than 20 minutes because I get enough for the day, and that's all I got is today to implement, and I'll get more tomorrow. Yeah. No. And so like that following piece to me is a really big piece. It's not just priming the mind, it's also following the nudges.
Absolutely.
So speak to that part.
That's one of the principles I teach is, so even anybody listening to this podcast, I want you to listen for insights, not information. People don't need more information. There's information out there everywhere, but whether it's a podcast, a book you're reading, always look for the insights. And then
what's the difference between information and insight?
So information was like, okay, the speaker had 7 bullet points about that, and I'm going to write down all 7 versus this one spoke to me in this moment. It spoke to you in that moment for a reason. It's saying this is something you need to implement. This is something you need to cut out. There's a reason that stood out. It's like this thought flash. Some people call it like Holy Spirit nudges. Like it's just something like you just feel different. Like there was some reason why that stood out. And some people, like let's say they're going to a seminar and they hear that and they're like, yes, this is amazing. I'm going to star it. I'm going to circle it. And then they never even go back to their notes. So first, you got to listen for the insights, but then you got to act on it. You got to follow the nudges. Those nudges are there because I believe those insights not only for you, but they're for someone else too. So one, I think you should act on it, but then I think you should speak those out because it could be not only for you, just speaking life into somebody else, but it is just being aware. It's like, hey, sometimes when you're in like, I'm going to take all this information in, you miss the insights. Right. So just step back. I'd rather you not take notes and listen to the thing that actually hits you and write down those top 1, 2, 3 things and act on those, then take 7 pages worth of notes.
Yeah. So if someone's like, okay, I'm sold. That's an insight. It's resonating with me right now. I need to have some type of evening routine where I'm setting myself up to visualize. Like what kind of walk them through step by step how they could design a kind of winning evening routine?
Yeah. So the simplest one is whatever you're trying to accomplish. It goes back to you have a vision, you have to have a goal. And then I just want you to create a scene of you living in it, living from the end. It's already accomplished. For me, I was already on that TEDx stage. So I was visualizing myself and not one day I'm going to be a TEDx speaker. Right. No, I already am. It's already happened. So I want you to visualize the end. It's already happened. You've already made the money. You got the job. You got the girl. Whatever the thing is, you're living in the end. And then you make it so real. Any emotions or any of the senses you can use, how you see it, how you feel it, you hear it, taste, maybe you're eating something in the scene, but create a scene that you just repeat over and over that tells your mind this is already done and live from the end. And then you go throughout the day, basically living from the end. From the moment I decided you know what? I'm doing the TEDx. I became a TEDx speaker. I walked around. I was like, it's already happened.
Right.
Yeah, the timeline's going to come together, whatever that is. But I already, in my mind, believed it's done. It's a done deal. And I think too many people still have that disconnect of the one day. The one day this is going to happen.
Yeah.
One day I'll get the job. One day I'll close this amount of per month, whatever the one day is. And the one day never comes because you never truly believe that you can do it.
Right.
And that's where you have to live from the end and take actions as that person.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I see a lot of people miss out on that too. Like, I don't want to underestimate the power of holding the image and the vision that you see yourself having.
Right.
Like some people, like they can have a visualization moment and it's like, okay, I've imagined it. I got my future dream. I see myself, cool. And then they hit one obstacle, they hit one challenge, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to quit. I'm going to get a job. And they like forgot that we're all pumped up at one moment, right? Like scripture talks about the parable of the sower who sows seed on these different types of ground, and there's the path and the thornies and the rockies and like that type of stuff, right? And so like it's like what you just said is important. I want to encourage our listeners that like, hey, maybe you've done some visualization, but you haven't actually walked around long enough holding the energy of what you see.
Right.
And so it doesn't actually come to fruition. You don't have that moment where you're sitting at the, table with somebody who's like, I know a TEDx organizer, because you counted yourself out before you ran into your divine appointment.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing when it comes to visualization, meditation, because you can go to the gym and you can feel a pump and you feel like I did something, and I'm sore the next day or 2 days after I felt something.
Right.
You don't just sit down to meditate once and your life changes.
I know, right?
It takes time. You need to take time for yourself to meditate, to be introspective, to visualize. And even with affirmations, a lot of people like, man, I tried affirmations in the past. It didn't work. Well, a lot of people do affirmations wrong. Maybe they looked up, they Googled the top 10 affirmations for success, and you're just repeating somebody else's affirmations. Like, no, you need to do affirmations. The whole point of it is to change the way you feel, is to change your state. Because if you can say affirmations that put you in a powerful state that make you believe this is possible, that's what you want to do. That's how you want to affirm it. That's how you want to visualize it, because then you'll take action as man, I'm unstoppable today.
Yes. And then, I got to say something about affirmations. Because I always tell people, what you misdiagnose, you'll mistreat. And I'm talking to them about their emotional wellness, right? But it works in this manifestation thing, because it's like people will try to use affirmations, like they'll download the 10 successful ones, but they aren't actually rewiring their subconscious where they're stuck. It's like they're just, it's like putting... it's not getting to the specific mindset limitation that they have, right? So I tell people to write down, or either write down your limiting beliefs, or you think about the thing that you want, and then as you run into trying to go get it, your limiting beliefs will be very obvious, because you'll find your limitations. You write those down, and then you have what you're going to rewire, and you do your affirmations according to where you're actually limited. You don't just say I'm healthy, wealthy, abundant, without actually trying to rewire your programming.
Right, yeah.
To me, that's where affirmations have been the most powerful, when I've made it specific to where my actual limitation was.
Right, yeah. Mind. And that's where it's the constant reminder. It's daily. It's affirmations, visualizations. Put it all together, because it goes back to what I shared earlier. You have to speak louder than those voices in your head.
Right.
Because those voices are going to come back. See, this is why you can't have it. And you need to tell yourself, like, no, that's who I was. That's not who I am or who I'm becoming. So when you can just be aware, nope, that's just the limiting belief. It's not going to stop me. It's there. I understand. I see you. But you're not going to stop me.
Right.
Here's who I am. Here's who I'm affirming. Here's who I'm taking action as. So that's not going to stop me.
100%. Bro. Oh my God. I can talk to this dude all day, man. So good, man. Let's land the plane. I always like to ask, anything on your heart right now that our world is wild. Politics is changing so fast. AI is wrecking everything, disrupting industries. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of excitement. And there's just a lot going on in our world. So anything in general that you want to just say to people who are out there just trying to be good humans, walk in their purpose, and serve others?
Yeah. And I'll answer this by going back to, because people ask about TED Talks and they're like, hey, how do I do a TED Talk? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. So one is, why do you want to do a TED Talk? Is it just for your credibility and accolades, or do you truly have a message on your heart to share with the world? Because that's TED's platform, an idea worth spreading.
Yeah.
So my whole idea, I took 2 years like praying, like, well, God, what message do I have to share? And that's where this last TED Talk came from, was I truly believe, everybody listening, you have a message to share.
Yeah.
There's a message inside of you the world is waiting to hear.
Yes.
And I want more people to share their story. If you need help getting it out, Darryl's the man. He can pull the story out of you, help you to share it with stages, because and the flip side of that is, what impact are you not making in the world by not getting out there and sharing your story? So I want people to realize, man, you've got a story. You've got to share it, because the stuff that you've been through, there's somebody going through right now what you went through in the past, and you could be the answer to show them the way. So help me out. Go watch my TED Talk.
Yes.
Comment on it. Help share it, something, because it's hopefully in a few weeks it'll hit 500,000 and then go to 1 million views. And as you know, we get nothing for that to happen, but it's the side effect is I love watching the comments.
Oh, love
and people
it.
just saying, man, I watched this and then I went and I did a speech and it really helped me. And it's just cool to see the impact that it's making.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. I agree with that. And I'll emphasize that same point for our listeners, because I find myself saying the same thing, because I'll be talking to a lot of corporate audiences and I'll tell them about my clients who speak on stages. And sometimes I can see it in their eyes. They're like looking like, oh, I'm not Dr. Justin Moseley. Actually, you're on one of my PowerPoint slides, bro. I'm not Dr. Justin Moseley. I'm not LaShawn Merritt. I'm not David Meltzer. I'm not multi-million-dollar earner, or I haven't overcome suicide or something, a near-death experience. I don't have a story to tell.
Right.
You know my go-to?
What's that?
It's so good. It's the trump card, baby.
Yeah.
When I have my daughter, I will actually bring her on stage.
Yeah.
But when I don't, I say, because they always have seen a picture of my daughter at this point, and I'll just say, hey, imagine if my daughter is standing right here. Can I ask you a question? And I thought, at what age will her story stop mattering? Silence.
Yeah.
And I said, if anybody came up to my daughter and said, you don't have a story to tell, everybody in this room would jump on that person for talking to that little girl that way. But yet, every one of you are talking to yourself that way. And you are telling yourself that you don't have a story to tell. Well, if there isn't an age where my daughter's story stops mattering, there isn't an age where yours stops mattering either.
Yep.
Every time.
Love it.
And so I just wanted to echo that, because I feel your heart in that, and I know it's true for you.
Yep.
And your story is always to help the former version of yourself.
Yeah.
And you never know who it will influence. And by the way, the former version of yourself isn't always identical. It's not a former chiropractic.
Right. Yeah,
It's a former person who's wrestling with the same emotions or psychology or spiritual issues. Like they can relate. They're the former version of yourself in some way.
Right.
Right. Every former version of myself is not an athlete.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But everybody struggle with limiting beliefs and different things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And so, man, just know, there's always somebody who can learn from the lessons that you've learned from. So, man, I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you share this podcast. Go check out Justin's TED Talk and follow him on all his platforms. We love you. And until next time, remember to keep seeding greatness. Peace.